Well, I got some big career news this week. I've been invited to host the Galactic Empire's reality dating show. And the winner of this show gets to go on a date with Padme. And I figured that since you two are my best friends, I'd give you the opportunity to enter early. And you'd get priority selection, obviously, because I'm the host. But the catch is contestants can only enter at a different stage of Anakin's life. So you can enter as young boy Anakin, puberty teenager Anakin, or arrogant adult Anakin. So if you guys are going to enter, what stage do you think you'd enter as?
I think I'm going to enter as angsty genocidal murderer Anakin.
I think you've got a pretty good shot of winning with that.
I think so too. I mean, that's when they fell in love, so.
Sure.
Keith, what about you? Who do you think you can embody?
Yeah, I think I'll enter as the arrogant older Anakin.
Oh, I was expecting maybe you would be the young boy, aka not a slave Anakin. But I like arrogant older Anakin, I gotta say.
He's just, hair. He's pretty confident. He's jealous. You will not take her from me.
Yeah. Austin, you be Padme and ask us a question like we're on the panel, and we'll just kind of go from there. We have to be in the moment. We have to be in the moment.
I've recently found out that I'm pregnant. How would you take this news? Teenage Anakin, we'll go to you first.
If I found out you were pregnant, I would be in agony. And I would ask your little baby bump, if you're suffering in that womb as much as I am, please tell me.
Alrighty, an arrogant adult Anakin, how would you handle the situation?
Is it Obi-Wan's?
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Arnies. We are three Jedi younglings with nothing better to do. I'm Austin Terry, and I'm joined by my best pals, Matt Johnson and Keith Baker. Matt, how's it going?
It's going good. Happy to be back. It's an exciting day, people. You know, we started this journey by reviewing the original Star Wars trilogy, and wow, what a treat. And here we are. We're already done with the prequels, so it can only get better from here, right? Oh, it doesn't? Okay, well, fuck this.
And Keith is back. We're so happy your departure is shorter than we thought it would be. How you doing?
Yay.
We missed you last week.
Appreciate it, guys. Yeah, it's good to be back. I was getting worried that I was going to miss this episode, so
we couldn't have done it without you. I don't think it would have felt right.
Today, we are back to our Star Wars series, and we are officially done with the prequels, as Matt said, and we are getting into Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. This film has been called everything from a masterpiece to a molten pile of garbage. Either way, just like Anakin must become Vader, we got to talk about it. Matt, give us some thoughts so we can get right into it.
Yeah, this one's an interesting one. I feel like I'm excited to break it down because I think this one is kind of universally accepted to be the best of the prequels. Certainly, you know, not everybody feels that way, but that kind of seems to be what most people think. And yeah, I hadn't watched it in a while, and certainly I would say the first half of this movie is pretty by far and away, you know, the best thing about the prequels. Once it gets into that second half, I think we kind of go back to some Attack of the Clones, Phantom Menace type feelings. But overall, I do think it is the best movie of the three, and I did enjoy watching it. So yeah, I'm excited to break this one down because I think there's certainly a lot to get to.
All right, well, let's start, as always, with our movie facts, and let's get into this cast. We don't really have any newcomers this time around. We do have Ewan McGregor returning as Obi-Wan Kenobi, Hayden Christensen returning as Anakin Skywalker, Natalie Portman returning as Padme, Ian McDiarmid returning as Chancellor Palpatine, and then this movie is written and directed solely by George Lucas this time.
No Jonathan Hales?
No Jonathan Hales. George Lucas kicked him off and said, I'll write that romance by myself. And then this is scored by John Williams.
Yeah, not much new here, obviously. They didn't really introduce any major things. I think the time jump is only like 3 years, so they didn't need any new actors or anything. So
I guess just Jimmy Smits kind of has a bigger role in this one.
Oh,
playing,
yeah. I forgot he was
Organa.
in Attack of the Clones. But yeah, you're right. He definitely has a pretty important role. Not a huge role, but an important one in this movie, yeah.
Yeah, and I couldn't find a whole lot of interesting stuff about the production of this movie. Strangely enough, though, there was like a whole lot about what Lucas decided to take out of this film. So he started writing this movie before they even started work on Attack of the Clones. And originally he wanted to open with like a montage of various Clone War battles. He wanted to do 7 battles on 7 different planets. But instead he decided the movie needed to focus more on Anakin, which is why we open the way we do.
See, that's so interesting because this is like what we've been talking about. That idea that you just said should have been the second movie. Attack of the Clones should have been the first one. What you just said should have been the second one, because now he's at the third one. He can't deviate from the Darth Vader stuff unless he makes another movie. I agree. So I feel like that kind of validates what we were talking about. It just feels like they picked the wrong periods of time for these movies.
He also had plans to answer the mystery of why Kamino was wiped from the archives, but he scrapped that once they decided to focus more on Anakin. They were also going to have Palpatine have a scene where he reveals that he personally created Anakin through the midichlorians and the Force, but he cut that out as well. And then
that should have been in there.
There was also supposed to be a scene where Qui-Gon Jinn appears as a Force ghost and communes with Yoda.
Yeah.
But that didn't happen.
That would have made sense too, because isn't it like a little bit weird at the end when it's just brought up?
We'll get to that. And then Gary Oldman was supposed to voice General Grievous in this film.
That's
but
right.
Because of another conflict with the Screen Actors Guild, he couldn't do it. So I feel like if George Lucas had just resolved his differences with the Screen Actors Guild, this franchise would be completely different.
I mean, I respect the hell out of him. Say what you want about his movies or whatever, but the fact that he was able to make all of these movies still happen and still get some cool stuff in there, in my opinion, without having all of the, I guess, access to actors, directors, and writers from all these guilds, I think it's cool that he made it work. Would we have gotten better movies had things been different? Probably, but I still respect that he was able to make Lucasfilm what it is without that help. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, I think it's cool he was able to do what he has been able to do, obviously, but I mean, who knows what this franchise would look like if he just resolved some of those differences.
Yeah, and also to that point, I mean, if things had been different and maybe that had led to better prequels, like better movies, I don't see any reason why he would have sold to Disney.
That's true.
I think he would have probably, I don't think he would have done it himself, but I think we would have seen the sequel trilogy that he had pitched and that he had written, and somebody else would have directed it. I definitely think that would have happened. So that's another kind of interesting thing about his outworking with the guilds.
Okay, so this film comes out. It makes $868 million worldwide against a $113 million budget. It currently has an 80% on Rotten Tomatoes. And this one is very well received by critics overall. Many consider this the best of the prequels. As always, critics praise the technical and visual effects. They actually praise the story in this film and the character development, which I was surprised to see. They felt George Lucas tied it into the originals very well, and a couple said this wasn't just a good Star Wars film. This is just a good movie in general. And then also some people called it George Lucas's masterpiece. However, not all critics liked it. Some felt it was all spectacle and no story. Hayden Christensen's performance was criticized, as was the failure to address some of the plot holes from the earlier movies in the prequels. And some also felt the entire cast gave flat performances, with one going so far as to say this should have just been a silent film.
That's a little dramatic.
It's funny because I don't love this movie. Like I enjoy it a lot. I don't love it as like, you know, a masterwork or masterpiece of film. But everything you just said, all the positive stuff I found that I actually agree with, and all the negative stuff I actually disagreed with. So even though I don't like love this movie, I definitely, I don't really like a lot of what was just said there.
Yeah, right off the bat, I think Hayden Christensen definitely improved his performance.
I think he's good in this. I like him in this movie.
Yeah.
I do not think he's good in this.
I'm not saying like excellent. I'm just saying he improved from the last one.
I think he improved a lot.
I feel like he pretty much gives the same performance he did in the first one until the final act. I think he does. I think he's good in the final act, but I think everything up until then is the same type of stuff he did in the second movie.
I would argue he's great in every scene he's in. The scenes, except the scenes with Padme, whenever it gets back to the really bad romance, and that's when it feels like Attack of the Clones. I think everything else is pretty cool.
Yeah, I would agree
but
with
we'll get to it.
All right, let's get into this first act now.
Ooh, this first act is awesome. I love this.
We learn in the opening crawl that the Republic is at war. The Republic has come under attack from Count Dooku, and Chancellor Palpatine has been kidnapped by General Grievous. The film opens in the middle of a space battle above Coruscant. Obi and Anakin crash land on the Dooku ship and rescue Palpatine. Anakin reunites with the pregnant Padme and has visions of her dying in childbirth. Anakin is granted a seat on the Jedi Council, but is not made a master, and the Council tasks Anakin with spying on Palpatine. So let's first start with that sequence on General Grievous's ship in the opening space battle.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
This is awesome.
The way this movie opens is probably the best opening of any of the films that we've seen, I would say. I think I even like it more than Hoth.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, I think I prefer the practicalness of Hoth, but as a sequence, I think this is maybe better. I think I might agree, just because it's so awesome. I think we complained last time about, and we will get into it, I do have complaints with it in this movie as well, but not as much. But like last week we talked about, we don't know Anakin and Obi-Wan's relationship. This opening scene with them kind of communicating while they're both flying was exactly what we talked about, in my opinion, with Luke and Han in the beginning of Empire. How you just feel it. These are friends. You feel it just by little conversations. This scene right here alone is already like, I get their relationship. I get it. I get what's going on. Their interplay is awesome. You see how Anakin, they show visually. They don't tell you, they show you how kind of different he is. Like how his first instinct is to just shoot the droids off of Obi-Wan's ship. And Obi-Wan's like, what the fuck are you thinking? You're going to kill him. He's like, I'm sorry, master. And then he tries to like nudge them off. Like, this is a great sequence. And I just love the line, and I think it's perfectly delivered, and makes me like fist pump because I think Hayden Christensen is so much better in this movie. I just love whenever he's like smiling. He's like, "This is where the fun begins." I'm like, "Oh, this is awesome, dude." I love this whole sequence. It's awesome.
Yeah, Anakin as a confident pilot is probably the best Anakin Skywalker you get in these films. I think Hayden Christensen does a great job of like showing how much Anakin loves to fly. I do think Hayden Christensen shows that very well through his emotions and the way he plays those portions of his role.
I know. Yeah. And then whenever he tells him that the shields are still up, and then he blows off the shields. And dude, when they land in there, and then Obi-Wan fucking front flips out of the cockpit, and then just starts swinging his lightsaber immediately.
Oh man, I remember seeing that for the first time in theaters as a kid, and I was like, "Holy shit!" That was one of the coolest openings ever out of the prequels.
I think it's also really funny how like Obi-Wan does that sweet front flip out of the ship, and then it pans to Anakin, and he's like taking off his seatbelt.
Gets out. Yeah, I feel like on this viewing, especially, it feels like Obi-Wan has kind of, in some interesting ways, taken like after Anakin a little bit. I feel like maybe his time with Anakin has made him certainly softened, I think, since Attack of the Clones, and I mean he's kind of like a little bit cocky in this movie, which I thought was kind of cool.
They even clear to state that this whole plan, like the assault on Dooku's ship, was Obi-Wan's idea too.
Right, that's true.
Which does seem like a plan Anakin would have come up with.
It feels like Obi-Wan. I think it's definitely established in this movie that Obi-Wan is more of like the field agent out of the council. Like they're always sending him off to do all the missions, and all the other guys are still sitting there like, let's send Master Kenobi to do it.
Yeah, send Kenobi.
Okay.
And he's just like, oh, fine, I guess. I just got back.
This guy's always on the road.
I remember whenever we got to Count Dooku in this sequence, I was surprised. I was like, oh, we're here already?
Well, before we get to Count Dooku, we're quickly introduced to General Grievous. And the only thing I want to ask, why does Grievous have a cough? Why does he have a cough? He's a droid. He doesn't have lungs.
Well, they do establish that he does have internal organs. Why does he? I don't know. Like, they show that weird scene where Obi-Wan pries open his armor, and you see, like, he has organs. I don't know why. Obviously, there must be some explanation in lore. I don't know what it is. But it is annoying. Does it give him kind of, like, an interesting character trait? Sure. But ultimately, it's kind of just, like, it's not that cool for me to not get annoyed when he's just coughing the entire movie.
I just found myself laughing. I forgot he had it.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about it too, like, and it made no sense when I was watching it.
Jedis!
Don't make a fine addition to my collection. It's like, God. Also, if he has lungs, how is he able to go out into space? I don't know.
Yeah.
And then the other thing before we get to the Dooku fight is usually I'm a big fan of R2, but I do feel like there's just a little too much R2 content in this opening sequence for me.
So, devil's advocate, this is the only R2 stuff.
That's true.
But I also see what you're saying, because it is probably still too much. Now, I know some people complain about him having the jet boosters, but for me, it's like we saw that in Attack of the Clones, so I don't care. But it is shocking a little bit to see him spew the oil, then light it on fire, and you just watch these droids burn to death. I think it's kind of cool, but it is shocking because it's like we've never seen anything from R2 like that. But I get your point that it might be too much.
So they do eventually catch up to where Palpatine is being held, and Dooku enters the room and ambushes them, and we get a little bit of a redo of the fight from Attack of the Clones, although it's a very short fight here.
And they do it better this time. Like, let's take them together this time.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
And then I love Anakin's like, I was just about to say that. I love that.
and Dooku does like a little
Obi-Wan
front flip.
Is the one like, that was terrible. That was the first thing. This was the first thing in the movie that's a mistake. That looked really bad. But this was cool. I mean, obviously, there are a lot of fights in this movie. I think we'll get to which is our favorite. I think they kind of spent most of their time clearly on the Anakin versus Obi-Wan fight. This one's cool, though. It's not long, but it is cool to see, kind of like this is the closest thing we're going to get to the Darth Maul fight, because in Attack of the Clones, they don't even fight together. And in this one, we at least get a little bit of like fighting at the same time. Obi-Wan does get his ass kicked pretty quickly.
For a Jedi Master, he ends up unconscious quite a bit.
Yeah. You see, here's the first thing. I kind of feel for Anakin, man. Why isn't this guy a master? You know what I mean? Obi-Wan's not that great at fighting, but he does have the high ground.
Not that great at flying either.
No.
Okay, so Anakin does eventually get the upper hand on Count Dooku.
Dude, and how cool is that? Grabbing his arms, blocking it, and then just sliding his blade down, and then just basically just like turning his wrist, and then he just cuts off both his hands.
And then catches his lightsaber, and then...
And Christopher Lee's reaction is just like, oh shit. And then, so this is kind of like, it's weird, because up until this point in the movie, like, I love all the Anakin and Obi-Wan interplay. Also, that elevator sequence, so badass when Anakin jumps out and then Obi-Wan's stuck in the elevator and then he does the flips and all that cool stuff. So it's like, Anakin's awesome. I love Anakin. And then we get to this scene and it's like, oh, wait, that's right. He's going to be a bad guy. And then he literally decapitates this prisoner just because his old friend, Palpatine, goes, do it. Tells him to. But again, that's Anakin. He isn't good at making decisions in the moment, clearly. And this is the first kind of inkling or reintroduction to like, oh yeah, this guy is going to go down a dark path. And obviously Dooku had to die so that Anakin is even a possibility to be an apprentice to Palpatine.
I love that look that Dooku gives Palpatine.
Yep.
Yeah.
Pretty scary.
He's like, kill him now. And he just looks at him like, oh, what? Why are you saying that?
Yeah.
Do it.
So before they can escape Dooku's ship with Palpatine, General Grievous does catch up to them, and then they briefly have a little duel with Grievous and his droid forces.
And again, another cool moment on the way whenever they get captured of like the whole Anakin and Obi-Wan dynamic being flipped is they get caught in the ray shields. And Obi-Wan's the one like, how'd this happen? We're smarter than this. Then Anakin's like, oh, hold up. Let's be patient. It's like, it's going to be fine. It's like, oh, this is kind of cool. So it's like they've kind of learned from each other over the years.
I kind of felt like Anakin was like almost making fun of Obi in this scene.
Maybe a little bit.
He's
maybe
like,
jabbing him a little.
I'm thinking patience, Master. Or maybe he's trying to show off for Palpatine.
Your precious patience. I don't know. Yeah, so you're right. They have the Grievous interaction, which has some pretty cool choreography. I always like watching the Obi-Wan scene where he fights those droids with like the purple electricity stick things that he cuts off the head, but then it's still alive. Like, there's some cool stuff here.
And a quick note on that choreography, Matt. Apparently Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor didn't use any stunt doubles for this film, and they also trained together on all their duel scenes like for months before this movie even started. So they like put a lot of time in to make sure all the fighting looked good in this film.
Yeah, I remember watching like this DVD just constantly after it came out to the point that I was like, I guess I'll watch the behind the scenes. And I remember there being like hours of content. And that was one of the big ones. They always talked about how Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen did every single bit of fighting you see, they're doing it, which is pretty cool. And you can tell because it allows them to do some cool close-ups and do some cool shots that it's actually them. We will get to parts of the movie where that wasn't so good. I did not love seeing Mace Windu versus Palpatine. But for that same reason, where it was cool for Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen, not so cool for old men, but we'll get to that.
All right, so they do eventually crash land Grievous's ship onto Coruscant and Grievous escapes. Obi-Wan lets Anakin be the hero and take the credit before the Senate and the Council, which I thought was kind of a nice moment between Obi and Anakin. So now let's move to Anakin and his relationship with the Council. But before we go there, let's touch on Anakin and Padme's reunion, where she reveals that she's pregnant.
I guess we kind of knew this was coming at some point. So she's pregnant and...
Mainly let's just touch on the visions that he's having. So he's having these visions where he sees her dying in childbirth, with this kind of like the catalyst for the rest of this movie.
Yeah, and, kind of reestablishes that. I mean, this is what happened whenever he had dreams about his mom, and then that led to their adventure in Attack of the Clones, where she died, and obviously once these visions start happening again, he's going to do what he can to make sure that doesn't happen, kind of making the audience understand maybe why this would be the reason why Jedi are probably not supposed to have attachment, because, well, I guess a lot, I don't know if they all do, but clearly a decent amount have the gift of foresight. So if you can predict that kind of stuff, then it's like, oh, I guess that's the reason why. So yeah, I mean, cool reintroduction. Makes sense why he's, at least, some stuff gets kind of, I think, rushed later, but at least the catalyst, like you said, totally makes sense. I mean, he's having these dreams again, she's dying, he's not going to let that happen, and he's scared.
I do hate every minute of this conversation, though, when he goes, Padme, you look so beautiful. Yeah. And then she goes, it's because I'm in love with you.
Which, okay, so that is a terrible line. But at least if they had left it there, our only criticism would have been just a cliche line. But then the next line is Hayden Christensen goes like this. No, it's because I'm so in love with you. I'm like, I can't do this right now. And it's so sad because I've loved him in this movie up until this point. But this scene is, it's just Attack of the Clones flashbacks for me.
Natalie Portman's a good actress. What is she doing here?
In these movies. Yeah, she's one of the best actors I feel like working today, but for whatever reason, I think it's got to just be the dialogue. I mean, that's been criticized in all of these movies. I think it's kind of what makes sense. I just don't think she could make it work. Like pretty much 90%, I think, of the actors in this trilogy couldn't. So, but it's unfortunate.
Okay, so Anakin does meet with Yoda about some of his premonitions. So the main reason I want to touch on this is because Yoda also then goes on to say, when you die, you become part of the Force, which is like a totally new interpretation of the Force than we've seen in the rest of these movies.
I do think this is, I guess it's kind of what we've seen before. I think that's the idea of Obi-Wan in A New Hope. I think he dies and becomes one with the Force. So I guess that's what he's saying. But at the same time, I don't have a problem with that. What I have a problem with, again, we talked about this last movie. Are they just giving this guy a pass because he's the chosen one? Because how does Yoda not freak the fuck out when he hears Anakin saying this? Like, it'd be one thing if... Because it was different in Attack of the Clones. Because Anakin was in a unique situation where he wasn't an orphan. He was taken off of Tatooine. He had a mother. And so obviously they're going to turn him to be a Jedi. They don't feel good about it because of all the baggage. But then, 10 years later, when he starts to have visions about his dying mom, they can't be mad at him. That's not his fault. He didn't do anything wrong. Like, his mom is dying, and he did something about it, did something really bad. In this movie, it's different, because now his mom's dead. So it's nobody else he should be attached to. And it's not like, if it was Obi-Wan, Anakin would have been like, I'm having dreams that Obi-Wan's dying. Instead, he doesn't give any names. No names. And Yoda's like, he doesn't care. What? How does he not say anything? I don't get this.
Him and Mace Windu, especially Mace Windu,
they're garbage. They're garbage.
No. Well, Mace Windu definitely doesn't trust Anakin. I mean,
that's true. He even says it.
Yeah. And in the first and second one, he's always just kind of like, no, I don't like this. Like, we're not sending him anywhere. No, he's not ready.
It's tough, man.
And
it's
all
just
that.
Tough.
But Yeah, I think the only reason they keep him around is because of the prophecy.
And it sucks, though, because come around. Anakin, for better or worse, he's made a lot of mistakes, but in this moment, he's clearly asking for help. He's not going to do something drastic at this time in order to stop Padme from dying. Should he have been more forthcoming? Maybe. But at the same time, when he's going saying, I'm having dreams that someone's going to die, and the response is, dying's just another part of life. It's like, well, what am I supposed to do with that? It's just, I get what you're saying, and I agree. I do think they give him a pass on everything because they believe he's the chosen one. But at the same time, it's like, you gotta at least give him an inch sometimes. You gotta at least give him a little bit of help. And don't get mad when he freaks out whenever you're gonna be no, you're not a master. Like, there's so much shit that he goes through that I actually kind of feel bad at some points.
So let's get into his relationship with the rest of the council. So Palpatine requests that Anakin represent him on the council, and then the council grants him a seat at the council, but does not make him a master, which really pisses Anakin off.
What? This is outrageous.
This is embarrassing. Yeah. I actually really like this whole confluence of events. I like the idea that Palpatine is in such a position of power that he's like, you're going to be my representative on the council. Obviously, that's going to piss people off, but Anakin's excited about the opportunity, and then whenever he's told, oh, yeah, you can be on the council, but you're not a master, it's like, I actually agree. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with what they're saying. And Obi-Wan even says after, look, I know it sucks, but you're the youngest person ever to be on the council. So that's an honor in and of itself. You will be a master at some point. There's no doubt about that. It's just, you got to give it a bit more time. So I like all this stuff a lot.
Master, I've been arrogant and disrespectful of your teachings. I apologize.
We're not there yet. He's overly critical.
But yeah, this is when they really start suspecting that there's something up with Palpatine.
Yeah, so this kind of works twofold. This is when they start suspecting Palpatine, and then this is where Palpatine's really, really starting to make his final push to make Anakin come under his wing. So pretty cool on both sides, in my opinion.
So with his new position on the council, Anakin is asked to spy on Palpatine, which Anakin feels goes against the Jedi Code.
Yeah, and not only that, I think Anakin's smart enough to know, so I think he was kind of seeing what Obi-Wan was saying. I think when Obi-Wan told him, look, it sucks you're not a master, but at least you're on the council, I think Anakin did hear that, and he was like, okay, that's true. But then whenever Obi-Wan's like, you need to spy on him, I think Anakin's smart enough to know, so they don't even want me on the council. They just want me to spy on him. So I think that's kind of another gut punch to him, I think. So it's a tough spot for him to be in, because he clearly wants to be a good Jedi. He respects the Jedi to a degree, but I mean, this is kind of a tough ask. So,
and even though the dialogue is terrible, you can tell Anakin still respects Obi-Wan too, and he doesn't really get upset with Obi-Wan for making this request. He just feels it's not a request the council should be making of him.
Right, and I do like the end of this scene. Whenever what is it? I don't remember the exact back and forth, but basically Anakin's like, "How could you ask this of me?" And Obi-Wan's like, he looks really sad, and Obi-Wan's like, "The council is it's not me, it's the council." And it's kind of like, there's another great moment of their relationship. And I think the movie only had pre him becoming Darth Vader. I think there's only one moment where he does that bullshit from Attack of the Clones where he's just like, Obi-Wan, I hate him. There's only one moment with Padme where he's he says something about Obi-Wan. But other than that, I feel like their relationship in this movie is pretty solid.
All right, so let's now go to Anakin and Palpatine's relationship. Palpatine tells Anakin he believes the Jedi are trying to vie for control of the Republic and move against him. He also tells him that the Sith and Jedi are very similar and that he knows of a Sith who was once able to save people from dying, which is very intriguing to Anakin.
Yeah, that's my favorite scene in the movie, maybe. It might be my favorite. Whenever he goes to meet Palpatine at the opera, and it's just so such a cool design. I feel like the production design here and the CG is so cool. And speaking of the CG, wow, in 3 years from Attack of the Clones, I feel like 95% of the CG in this movie holds up to a pretty amazing degree. I feel like this movie looks pretty awesome.
Looks really good. And to your point, Matt, I do like this too, because it does make Palpatine seem really cunning, and you can tell Palpatine is very manipulative, but then also really smart with the way he uses his Jedi like influences and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and it's also cool because he's telling what seems to be a true story about him killing his master, which Anakin doesn't know that yet. But it's also cool because he's telling Anakin exactly what he knows he needs to hear. Again, I feel like the dialogue is not always great, but I feel like they always end these scenes really well. Like I just talked about the Obi-Wan line. This one is like just one of my favorite Star Wars lines. Whenever Anakin, he hears this entire story, and Anakin's like basically his only reaction is like, "Of course, is it possible to learn this power?" And I love Palpatine like, "Not from a Jedi."
Yeah,
it's like it's awesome.
Let's dig into that story real quick about Darth Plagueis and how he killed Darth Plagueis and all that. And he was explaining the power of Darth Plagueis and the power of the dark side, and how Darth Plagueis was able to manipulate midi-chlorians to create life. So remember, Anakin didn't have a dad. He was created out of immaculate conception or whatever.
Yeah, like Austin said, I guess they deleted the scene where that was explicitly said, but I think I think you're right. I think this was the
I think they're just trying to imply it here.
Yeah.
And I think Darth Plagueis may have been involved in that too. I think like Sidious and Plagueis may have brought Anakin into the world. And then I think maybe it was after that he killed Plagueis. I'm not 100% sure. Either way, the story's awesome. I think it's really cool. And it's acted really well too. I mean, it's terrifying, but also, again, it's a moment where you go, if I was Anakin and I was having these dreams again about someone else in my family, that would be pretty interesting to hear. That story might, flip some switches in your head. So,
All right. Well, the first act does conclude with Yoda leaving to help the Wookiees on Kashyyyk, and Obi leaving for Utapau with a clone fleet to pursue General Grievous.
I guess you could say this is Anakin and Obi-Wan's last scene together, because the next time they're back together, it's Obi-Wan and Darth Vader. But I like this last scene. This is the scene we were making fun of a little bit. The beginning of it is a bit shaky, where he's like, "Master, I've been arrogant. I haven't appreciated your teachings, and I apologize." But then I think Ewan McGregor kind of takes that and turns it into something good. He's like, he tells him he is proud of him. Like, this is kind of like in contrast to the Attack of the Clones Obi-Wan, which we kind of joked about as like last time we talked, is such a shitty mentor. I mean, you have to. Obviously, what Anakin does is unforgivable in Attack of the Clones. But his relationship with Obi-Wan, I mean, you get why it's strained. I mean, Obi-Wan's not a good teacher. Like, he's not the kind of person. He just tells you how shitty you are at something. And even if you do something good, for whatever reason, it's just not good enough. But in this movie, even a few years later, it's changed. And I love seeing Obi-Wan tell Anakin that he is proud of him, and that he does feel bad that the Council doesn't view him the way that he views him, and that he will be a master someday. And it's a really kind of, it's a bittersweet final scene, because I think he means everything he says, and we know when he gets back, things are a bit different. So I do like this final scene, and we get the cliche, "May the Force be with you," but still, it's Star Wars, so it's pretty cool. I like this scene.
Yeah, I think we needed this scene to really buy into the emotional impact of the final scene of this movie.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, let's get into the second act. Obi-Wan tracks General Grievous to Utapau, where they duel.
Utapau. Such a funny name.
Anakin continues to be manipulated by Palpatine and discovers that he is a Sith Lord. Anakin reports this news to Mace Windu, who attempts to arrest Palpatine. Anakin saves Palpatine and turns to the dark side. Palpatine gives the infamous Order 66 to the clone army. So let's get into Utapau and General Grievous. Obi-Wan basically arrives on this planet. The leadership tells him we're being held captain and Grievous is here. He pretends to send his plane back to meet with the clone army, but he stays secretly on the planet. And then he rides a fucking gecko to go after General Grievous. It's so weird, dude. I hate this entire second act here, especially all the Utapau stuff.
That's what I assumed you were talking about at the beginning when you said that you didn't like the middle. I feel like this is the weakest stuff, and I feel like most of it's because they had to introduce something to take Obi-Wan away from Anakin. So what did they choose? They chose General Grievous. I just don't think he's interesting enough or even cool enough to justify Obi-Wan not being with Anakin. But again, it's a prequel, so he can't be. I just don't think it's that interesting. And I agree. I don't really love the Utapau stuff. I think the Order 66 there is cool, but the culmination and the final fight between Obi-Wan and Grievous isn't great, in my opinion.
I don't really like any of the Grievous stuff, and I think Grievous is a very silly villain as well. So
yeah, he kind of sucks.
It feels like George Lucas just really wanted a Obi-Wan riding a gecko action figure to put on shelves. So that's what we got.
And Grievous climbing around like a spider.
That one worst part of it. That's the worst. Part of it. And also, call back to us last time talking about how everybody in this series is an apprentice of somebody. I guess Grievous isn't technically, but he, of course, before the final fight, had to say, "I've been trained to the Jedi arts by Count Dooku." It's like, okay, when?
I don't think we really have too much to touch on here. Grievous does escape in his roly-poly device and then is chased by Obi-Wan and the gecko. But before we move on from here, I do want to touch on kind of the brief interactions between Obi-Wan and Commander Cody, because I actually do really like the way they interact in this film, and it makes the Order 66 impact feel that much more darker. It seems like they have a good relationship, and you can tell Obi-Wan and the rest of the Jedis as a whole really do have a good relationship with the clone forces.
Because I was going to say, I always thought it was just a bug in their programming, but then at the end, the clones are with Palpatine. So I guess I was curious, how, and the clones also go to the Jedi Temple to kill them. So I guess I was curious, how long did the Order 66 last? How long are they under Palpatine's influence? I wasn't clear on that, but I mean, regardless of that, I mean, the Order 66 stuff is pretty well done, I think.
Yeah, we'll get into that in a second, but I think the clones are programmed basically just to follow orders without question. And I think because Palpatine is the Supreme Chancellor, his orders take precedent over anybody else's. So when he gives this command, they're just supposed to follow this order without questioning it, regardless of what they have from the Jedis.
Yeah, regardless of what the answer is, because I always thought it was just, I can't even think of it's what's the word? It's a sleeper cell. That's how I always interpreted it, is that they're good people, but then whenever they hear Order 66, that goes away. And then they're just going to kill people. But again, regardless of what it is, the movie doesn't really tell us. It doesn't do a great job of saying what the answer to that is. So, whatever. You could move on.
Okay, so let's get into Mace Windu and Palpatine. Anakin does eventually turn over Palpatine to Windu. Windu takes a small collection of Jedi to go try and arrest him.
So I know what the criticism is on this one, how the other three Jedi just get killed immediately. I'm guessing.
My god.
I actually kind of like that, though, because it shows how powerful Palpatine is.
I agree with you. I agree with that. But it's aren't all of these guys supposed to be Jedi Masters, though? So it's I agree that it's it shows really quickly how powerful Palpatine is, but at the same time, the fact that one of them doesn't even swing his lightsaber and basically just opens his arms to get stabbed is come on. You gotta do a bit better than that.
What do you guys think of Palpatine whirling out of his desk and out of his
I hate everything about it.
Yeah, it's supposed to be some Sith yell. I don't know where I read that at. It's some Sith yell thing where they twirl around and they're supposed to scare their enemy.
So it's funny because whenever we reviewed Return of the Jedi, or maybe it was even the Empire, because I was talking about how I had a hot take, which is that I don't like the Emperor. I hate that character. I think it's too silly. Everybody's he's one of the best villains ever. And I'm I just don't get it. I think the guy's silly, not intimidating, and yeah. So I think what I've come to realize is that I hate the Emperor, but I think Ian McDiarmid, whatever his name is, however you pronounce it, I love him as Palpatine. I think he's great. But in this moment, the switch is flipped, and now he's playing the Emperor. And it's so goofy.
Why is he groaning so much?
I don't know. He makes the weirdest faces, too.
Yeah.
And yeah, to make matters worse, no disrespect to them because they're older, obviously, but the fact that I guess they wanted to be able to use, it's we talked about with Count Dooku last time, but it's they wanted to use close-up shots, and they wanted to have it actually be Sam Jackson and Ian McDiarmid. It's not that intimidating. Once he kills the other Jedi that are there, it's a pretty slow fight that goes on for a little bit, and it's not exciting. It certainly doesn't make either of them look that powerful whenever they're fighting.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think of that?
Overall, the fight held up better than I remembered it to, but I do think it is the worst fight in this movie. And I think the General Grievous fight is only slightly ahead of this one.
I'd agree with that. Yeah, I think I agree with that personally.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the choreography, I kind of agree with you guys.
It feels almost non-existent. It feels like they're just like swinging occasionally, and that was the choreography.
Well, because Ian McDermott couldn't move; he's too old. But I mean, when at the end of the battle, whenever Mace Windu finally gets the best of him, that's supposed to show how powerful Mace Windu is.
Yeah.
But obviously, Anakin fucks that up for him.
So Mace Windu is about to arrest Palpatine when Anakin shows up. Palpatine feigns that he's injured and old and weak, and Windu says instead of taking him to stand trial, he's just going to kill him because he's too powerful. Anakin sees this and decides to save Palpatine instead. So let's get into, do you guys think if Windu had agreed to let Palpatine stand trial, does Anakin turn to the dark side? And also, do you think if Anakin goes to Utapau instead of Obi-Wan, does Anakin turn to the dark side?
I think only the scenario that played out in this movie is what makes him go to the dark side. I think if Anakin had been with Obi-Wan, if he had not been asked to spy and he had gone with Obi-Wan to Utapau, he wouldn't have turned. I think if Mace Windu decides to arrest him, he wouldn't have turned. Because Anakin turned him in. Anakin knew what was going to happen. He knew that they were going to go there and arrest him. And I think Anakin was convinced, if he gets arrested, I can still hopefully find out how to save people. If he's alive, I can maybe still get that out of him, even if he's like in jail or something. But when the second the scenario becomes, I'm going to kill this guy because he's too powerful, I think that's when Anakin's like, I guess I have to do something because I need to know how to save people from dying. And it's kind of sad because it also calls back to the beginning of the movie. I mean, here is Mace Windu about to kill an unarmed prisoner. And it kind of makes you think back. It's like, well, I mean, this is the Emperor. He is the Sith Lord. We know this guy isn't the apprentice. He's the Sith Lord. Is it right to kill him? It's kind of interesting because we kind of criticized Anakin earlier, but Mace Windu is about to do the exact same thing, and Anakin stops him. Of course, with some great lines. He must stand trial. I need him. No!
Then I like Sam Jackson's famous scream.
Dude, I think it's awesome. It's like terrifying. Like this guy gets his hand cut off and then immediately gets electrocuted for so long.
Yeah.
They also do that cartoonish electrocuting thing where you see the skull again, like they did in Return of the Jedi. But no, I think as long as Palpatine is alive, Anakin turns to the dark side. Like, I think there's still a chance. Even if he goes to Utapau and comes back, like I think as long as Palpatine lives, he still finds a way to manipulate Anakin and get him into the dark side.
I guess if he goes to jail, though, I don't agree because I don't see how. I guess maybe it could have been one of those things. He goes to jail, and then Palpatine convinces him to like let him go somehow, escape. Who knows?
I also think Mace Windu makes a good point where he says Palpatine controls the entire Senate, and there's no way he'd be found guilty.
Yeah,
and the courts. Yeah,
that's true. Also, we got to talk about. So, what causes Palpatine to transform here? Is it just him using his powers so long?
I think it's the use of the dark side for so long.
Yeah,
I think this is a weird one. Well, the electrocution was reflected back to him.
I guess that's what it was, right? Because he was like deflecting it. So I guess that's what it was. Also,
but Windu doesn't transform like that when he gets hit with it.
Well, it wasn't long enough, I guess, because it was just going directly. I don't know.
Also, weird that every scene after this, Palpatine sounds relatively normal, but for some reason in this scene, his voice is completely like a what's the word? It sounds like a robot. It sounds like he's doing Ben Affleck's Batman voice. It's weird.
He's literally
the rest of the movie that's not there.
You mean after he gets deformed?
Yeah, after Mace Windu dies and he gets up, he sounds like he's being auto-tuned. It's really bizarre. I guess I hadn't noticed that before. And then we get the scene. This is where things start to go downhill in the movie for me. Because this scene I see and I'm like, look, I get Anakin's motivation. And it's tough. But it's like, it just feels so rushed. It's like Mace Windu just died, Anakin's clearly distraught, and then within like a minute, he's on his knees calling Palpatine his master and agreeing to be a Sith. And then not only that, like 2 minutes after that, Palpatine's like, go kill all the Jedi. And it's such a tough pill to swallow.
It is very quick, but this is actually where I start to get on board, like back on board with the movie, because the Utapu stuff really like turns me off for the movie. But then, like I just find this stuff really interesting, and I really like how you see the transformation not only on Palpatine's face, because that looks awful, but also like in Anakin's face and his demeanor, that you can tell that he's just fully after killing Windu, he's fully now committed to the dark side, and I actually really like that transformation.
Well, you can just tell he's torn, like because he really regretted. You remember, he's like, "What have I done?" Like he still wants to be a good Jedi and follow the Jedi Order, but at the same time, it's so embedded in his brain to save Padme that he's just going to have to give all of his goodness up in order to do that. So
yeah, it is sad. Also, speaking of that, a scene that I didn't remember, and it is a little bit cheesy, but I thought it was really effective, was the scene right before Anakin leaves to go, quote unquote, save Palpatine. It's where, Windu tells him to stay in the council chambers, and he goes there, and he's sitting in the room, and then he just, then it cuts to Padme, just going about her day, and then, whether it's through, a Force connection or just a moment, who knows, but she, looks out of their apartment, you can see the Jedi Temple way in the distance, and then he kind of stands up and, walks towards, a window, and, you can see the apartment way in the distance, and then just keeps cutting back and forth, the music's playing, it's really different music than what we're used to in Star Wars, and then it cuts to Anakin, he's just crying, and you know what he's doing, he's like, I want Mace Windu to trust me. I want to do the right thing. I want Palpatine to go to jail. But all I can think about right now is her. And she's going to die. So I got to go do something. And it's there's some really effective scenes in here emotionally. Which I feel like this is the first movie where we can say that. Because I feel like there was almost devoid of emotion in the first two prequel
I do
movies,
think, I do kind of agree with the critics. I do think this one does have probably the best character development. Maybe of the original trilogy as well, because the characters in the original trilogy don't really change a whole lot from where they were to where they end. So
yeah, Luke Skywalker goes from whiny farm boy to whiny guy with a medal.
Okay.
No, I think you could be right.
Okay, so Palpatine does dub Anakin Darth Vader. And then he gives order. He gives order 66 and sends Anakin to kill the Jedi, and the clone soldiers begin executing their Jedi leaders as well.
This montage is awesome.
Yeah, I really like this montage, which is sad to say, but this is one of the coolest montages.
It's sad, but it's so well done.
Yeah. And I also do think, because you have seen the relationship with Commander Cody, like I said earlier, I think it makes this montage more impactful when you see them. Because you see Anakin, you see Obi-Wan come up, Commander Cody gives him his lightsaber back, and then 2 seconds later, Palpatine comes on and gives the order, and there's not even any hesitation, which I think is really effective. Palpatine gives that order, and Cody just immediately commands his soldier to shoot down Obi-Wan.
Yeah. It shows how robotic they are.
Yeah. I think it's really effective.
Yeah.
And then all the scenes we get, multiple scenes of Jedi, leading their clones in a fight, and then just out of nowhere, just getting ambushed, getting shot down in a plane, getting shot down in a speeder, getting shot in the back. I mean, they didn't really hold back with some of this stuff.
So with Order 66, we also do have Anakin in the Jedi Temple, killing Jedis, but then also killing younglings.
Yeah, pretty intense first job. The first job I had, the first couple days were just setting up my email, that kind of thing. Well,
actually, the first couple days were pushing carts, because our first real job was all three of us working in a grocery store together.
I know. Even my last job was you just kind of spend the first few days just, setting up an email account, meeting people. Anakin's first job, his first couple hours on the job as Darth Vader is presumably probably decapitating children. So it's a bit different, to be sure. So
yeah,
it's an effective scene. Again, is this stuff rushed? Can I believe in any world that Anakin would do this even after his actions in the last one? Not particularly. I get he wants to save Padme.
Women and children too.
They're animals, and I slaughtered them like animals. But all that aside, I do think the scene is effective of him walking in there and the little kid who's a worse actor than Hayden Christensen in the last movie is like, Master Skywalker, there's too many of them. What do we do? And then just the lightsaber just pops out. Pretty whoa. Even the kid, like, his reaction is kind of like, whoa, shit. So
I was watching this with my wife, who I hadn't seen this one in a while, and she was like, is he about to murder these kids? And I was like, yep. And she was like, dang, this movie gets dark fast.
Yeah.
And what's fucked up about it, he just goes right back to Padme's house after, like, nothing happened.
I know. Yeah.
That was kind of weird. And she's sobbing because she sees the Jedi temple's on fire. And then the 3PO walks over to confirm that he heard that, last he heard that Anakin was at the Jedi temple. So she just starts crying. It's like, oh, shit. And then he gets back and, already with the lies. He's already playing off, oh, I'm fine. Yeah, I wasn't even there. It's all good. Yeah. How's our baby? It's like, ugh, kind of gross.
Well, let's now get into the third and final act of our prequel trilogy. Yoda confronts Palpatine while Obi-Wan tracks down Anakin. Both sides duel, resulting in Yoda's exile and Anakin's disfigurement and continued transformation into Darth Vader. Padme gives birth to Luke and Leia, and the prequels catch up to the original trilogy. Yeah, so let's first just get into Mustafar really quick and Anakin killing the Separatist leaders. Why does Palpatine order this? I don't understand because these guys are technically on his side. So why wouldn't he just want them to be like his leaders or generals in the Galactic Empire?
Something with politics, like they're part of the Separatists, which he wants to wipe out the Separatists too, I guess, even though
right. I guess, you're right, because I guess he has to still have the people on his side. So if the Separatists are, well, you know what? There you go. Because if the Separatists are wiped out, the war is over. The war is done. So then Palpatine, that's when he goes to the Senate and is like, the Separatists are gone, the war is over, and we are now all, there's no sides anymore. We are all the Galactic Empire. So there you go. That's Empire Strikes Back. So that's when it turns from the Republic to the Empire.
Okay.
And I love the line that Padme has whenever she's like, so this is how, what is it she said? God, I always say, I love this line that I'm always like,
the people cheer while democracy dies or something like that.
No, she's like, this is how liberty dies.
With thunderous applause. Awesome line.
So let's get into Obi-Wan and Yoda sneaking back into the temple. We do have a really sweet Yoda moment when they're fighting outside the temple, and he just takes his saber and thrusts it point first into a clone soldier. It's so cool. And I think Obi-Wan has like a terrible reaction, like just like performance-wise when he sees what Anakin's doing on tape. But because he watches it for like 2 seconds and he's like, I can't anymore. Turn it off. But I do like that Obi-Wan like has to see it to believe it. So Yoda tells him like, hey, don't look at that. You're not going to like what you see. And Obi-Wan like he needs to do it to believe it. Because they both have a feeling that it's Anakin doing this stuff. But Obi-Wan has to physically see it for him to actually believe what his apprentice has done.
Yeah, I agree. The reaction, even though there is emotion there, it still feels like it's not enough. You think there would be a bit of a stronger reaction, but that being said, it is what it is. And then this leads into him going to talk to Padme, trying to find out where Anakin is, and then the final confirmation that I assume Obi-Wan's known for a long time, but this is where they do just straight up say, like, oh, Anakin's the father, I'm so sorry. And then he kind of sneaks aboard Padme's ship to go to Mustafar.
And probably the worst performance in the entire movie from Portman here, because he says Anakin's to return to the dark side, and she just goes, I don't believe you. I can't.
She learned too much from Hayden Christensen in the last movie, I think.
And like I said, she's a good actress. I don't know what she's doing in this movie, though.
Yeah. The money, baby. You need that cash.
That's right.
You need those galactic credits.
Well, let's get into these final duels. We have Yoda confronting Palpatine, and we have Anakin and Obi doing a showdown in the lava pits of Mustafar.
Okay, so before we get into this, I want your guys' vague opinions. So we got 2 fights here. I want to know what your opinions are on both of them, but don't say which fight you're talking about. So I'll start. I think one of these fights is pretty cool, and one of them is terrible. Keith, what are your thoughts?
All right, one of these fights has some cool moments, definitely some Phantom Menace-like moments with the fight choreography mixed in with some really dumb shit. And then...
What about the other one, Keith?
And then the other one, starts off pretty cool.
Yeah, it does.
And also ends with some dumb shit.
Yeah. All right, Austin, your turn.
I like both of these fights. I think one is definitely better than the other one. But overall, both of these fights held up pretty well for me.
Interesting. All right, well, let's break them down. Austin, where do we start?
Let's start with Yoda and Palpatine.
All right, yes. With Yoda just walking on into the room, Force pushing those guys back against the wall.
I was going to say, I like that part.
Yeah, I like that part.
Yoda's very jovial in this scene for someone that is a Jedi Master, and he's watched all of his Jedis die. A little bit making jokes to Palpatine, which is a little bit weird. Also, this scene, I don't know what happened in the scene, but there's 2 lines here, which I can't even quote because they're nonsensical, but they took the whole Yoda speaking out of order in his sentences a bit too far. There's one sentence that just ends with him saying "is," but when you hear it, you're like, what's he talking about? Like, this is the only scene in any of Yoda's scenes in the entire franchise where it's unclear what he's saying. So yeah, the Yoda fight starts off pretty cool in terms of whenever they actually start fighting. I like that he gets caught off guard with the lightning and then pops up, catches it, and then the fight just kind of goes upstairs and it turns them to fighting all over this actual Senate. Yeah,
I really like that. And I like that because of the way the Senate's structured. There's multiple platforms, because in Attack of the Clones, whenever Dooku and Yoda fight, there's really no reason for her to be bouncing around like a fucking Looney Tunes character like there is in that he is in that movie.
Not at all.
But in this one, because of all of the platforms, it makes sense why he's jumping around so much, I think. And I think it actually fits the setting really well.
It's way better.
I agree with that.
It's also cool that this fight, the one thing I will give it is, it's definitely, while the Obi-Wan and Anakin fight is certainly extremely focused on lightsaber ability, this one's more about how long can you use the Force for. This one's about your Force ability. We see Palpatine use the lightning for extended periods of time and almost pass out. We see Yoda have to hold the lightning for a long time. We see how many times they can actually Force push these huge objects and stuff, which is pretty cool that they kind of did a fight different in that sense that focuses on the Force. I just think it's just not particularly exciting. It's one of those things where we talk about with the Phantom Menace, where at the end they kept cutting from the Darth Maul fight to Jar Jar straddling the end of a tank and just moaning. This one, in the Obi-Wan and Anakin fight, they keep cutting to this one, and I always was like, go back to the other one. It ends, and it ends in just a way that I don't know what's happening. This fight ends, and Palpatine almost dies. He's dangling off the edge of this thing, and Yoda just lands on the bottom. He's totally fine, and he just goes, "I have failed." And he's like, "I have to exile myself." And if I was Organa, I would have been like, "What happened?" He's like, his answer would have basically been, he just, he was dangling off something and I fell on the ground and I had to get out of there. What? It's so, I just don't understand it. So, kind of a weird moment, but yeah, those are my thoughts on this fight.
Okay, well, let's now get into Obi and Anakin's fight on Mustafar. Before this fight starts, though, Padme does fly to Mustafar and confront Anakin. He accuses her of Obi having turned her against him, and then he force chokes her. Padme doesn't like what she... Yeah, out of nowhere. But Padme doesn't like what she's seen Anakin become and says that she won't be a part of it.
Well, it shows how screwed up Padme is, too. Because she already knows at this point he's killed younglings, and she says, "Let's get away. Let's leave this all behind."
Yeah.
At the last part there. So she was okay with him killing younglings.
She still doesn't care about this stuff. Honestly, at this point, I don't really care. The scene isn't good. Like we've talked about, all the Anakin and Padme stuff is terrible. Yeah. All the dialogue's garbage. Him choking her is like, I get this guy's on the dark side now, but again, this is like his first day. Seems like a bit of a move. It seems a bit out of the realm of possibility, especially if this is the only reason he's on the dark side. And also, can we talk about how in this scene, he's already talking about ruling the Empire? It's like,
yeah, that's weird. He says he wants them to rule it together.
It's like, I didn't know that was a possibility. I didn't know that's what we wanted, Anakin.
I agree with you guys that this scene is very dumb. It has very dumb moments. However, there is something dumber coming up, and it's just a shot. But while Anakin is choking Padme, it then pans to Obi-Wan standing on the ramp of the ship with his hands on his hip and his like cape.
He's doing the Superman.
And it's the dumbest looking thing I've ever seen. My wife and I both audibly laughed out loud when we saw this play out on screen.
I'm so excited. All right, well, guys, let's just get into this because we've been holding off too long. We haven't done enough quotes in this episode, in my opinion. So let me give you a little bit of how the next scene goes whenever Obi-Wan walks down. You have allowed this dark lord to twist your mind until now. Until now, you've become the very thing you swore to destroy. Don't lecture me, Obi-Wan. I see through the lies of the Jedi. I do not fear the dark side as you do. I have brought peace, freedom, justice, and security to my new empire. Your new empire? Don't make me kill you. Anakin, my allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy. If you're not with me, then you're my enemy. Only a Sith deals in absolutes. I will do what I must. You will try.
All right, let's get into the duel. Let's break it down. What are your favorite parts of this fight?
What I just did is the best part of this fight.
I do think the best part of this fight is the beginning when they're just fighting on the platform and saber dueling.
Yeah, the beginning and the end, but I think there's two parts in here that are just straight up dumb. And the first one is whenever it's right in the middle of the fight, they both just start twirling their lightsabers around at the same time.
I kind of like it, actually.
Even like slashing at each other at all.
I kind of like it. I'm not going to lie. I like it.
They both
I mean, it was cool, but it was just like, what was the point?
Yeah. What's the other part?
I think the dumber moment is when they both try to force push each other, but they just stand there with their hands inches apart from each other and then just like explode backwards.
Yeah. I thought that was kind of cool. Yeah. So this fight clearly is what they were building towards. This is something we've known basically since the first movie that they fought at some point. So there's certainly build-up and history. I think it could have been cooler. I think it could have been better. I think when we have a fight like the Darth Maul fight, you want all the fights to be like that. Whenever you have so many like bland fights up until this point in the movie, I think we were kind of expecting something cool here. When I was a kid, this fight was so cool. I think ultimately what it comes down to is it just seems too choreographed. Whenever it cuts to their faces, there's like no emotion on their face. They look like they're in their head. They're thinking about what move to make next.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I think it shows. And also, I get, like, Anakin's new, so I get why he doesn't have the red lightsaber. But as weird as it sounds, I honestly think at least having a different color lightsaber might have made some scenes more dramatic. I think it's cool, the idea of, like, people, like, two blue lightsabers clashing isn't something that would happen very often. But just to have a little bit of like dynamic, like something visually different there, I think might have been better because, and it's also when you think about it, think about the Darth Maul fight. You have an older guy like Qui-Gon who fights a bit slower, but he fights more strategically. And you have a young Obi-Wan that just fights really frenetically, and then Darth Maul who has a double-sided lightsaber that's fighting two people at once. Whereas here, it's basically like two people of similar skill level doing similar strikes and blocks just really quickly. And so at times does get a little bit, I think, overwhelming in terms of like, you kind of just start going like,
Well, that's why they added in some platforming.
I think you're probably onto something there. I think the reason why there's so many different like arenas, if you want to call it that, in this fight is because they quickly realized these guys are kind of the same skill level. Yeah. So it's like they're gonna do the same thing.
Yeah, they're never gonna beat one or the other.
Yeah.
Without making it interesting with the lava.
What about whenever they were swinging on the rope and they did that cool lightsaber slash?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're laughing here, but I do still like both of these simultaneous duels. I really like how they're like multi-leveled and you go through like a lot of different like rooms and different scenery while they're fighting. And I do think there are some pretty good like Force moments too with both Yoda and Palpatine and Anakin and Obi-Wan. And then also I like that there's a lot of wide frame shots in here, so they don't do too much of that like facial close-ups on them, so you can actually see the choreography and it plays out better on screen, I think, than it did in Attack of the Clones.
For sure. I agree with that.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
And then we get to the end.
Obi-Wan gains the high ground. he cuts off Anakin's legs, and Anakin rolls back into the lava.
And his other arm. He somehow... I'm trying to get I need my protractor to figure out how he did this. In one strike, he cuts off Anakin, both his legs, and the arm that isn't a mechanical arm. It's a pretty good strike, I guess. Pretty effective.
Yeah.
Then Anakin just hits the ground pretty quick, like a fucking sack of potatoes.
Yeah. And Obi-Wan leaves him for dead.
So this one has one terrible quote, which is "It's over, Anakin. I have the high ground." And then it just close up of Anakin. "You underestimate my power." So that one's not so good. I do, however, really like the scene where Obi-Wan's like, you were the chosen one. You were supposed to destroy the Sith, not join them. And then Anakin just really kind of unexpected, but really, made a lot of emotion there. Just tells him he hates him. And then we get "You are my brother, Anakin. I loved you." And yeah, man, I think it's a good cap off. And obviously, as we learn later, Obi-Wan thinks Anakin dies here, but he doesn't. Yeah,
I think the performance Ewan gives in this scene alone, I think he delivers his lines really well, and you can see just the grief all over his face when he's forced to kill, or what he thinks is killing Anakin, and then tells him like you said, you're the chosen one. I really like everything Ewan does in this scene.
But yeah, he did not die. Anakin weirdly catches on fire, and then the screams here are truly just hard to listen to. But then I guess the fire just goes out at some point, because then he just starts crawling up the hill, and he's not on fire anymore. So I was like, oh, I forgot about that.
All right, so this movie does have a lot of cleanup closing shots, basically. Palpatine comes and saves Anakin and puts him in the Vader suit. Padme gives birth to Luke and Leia, and Obi-Wan and Yoda divide up the twins. And I do think this movie should have ended when you get the first Vader breath. I think it should have just cut to black there and the credits had rolled. I think that would have been so cool. But it doesn't. It takes forever to end instead. We get a funeral for Padme on Tatooine. We get the Empire starting construction on the Death Star. And then we get Luke and Leia being delivered to their new respective homes.
Right. We also get the scene where basically Obi-Wan and Yoda confirm what they're going to do. Yoda going into exile. There's a deleted scene where he lands on Dagobah. And then Obi-Wan is also going to go into exile, but he's also going to simultaneously watch over Luke because Senator Organa is going to take Leia.
And Yoda tells him he has to train while he's in exile because Qui-Gon has learned a way to communicate from death.
I was saying, hopefully this is something we'll see in the Obi-Wan series.
I think we are. I think we need to, because this is the worst example to me of a
I don't want to see this at
show.
All.
Because it's just so weird. It's I feel like what we talked about earlier, I feel like a scene of Liam Neeson back in some form, just as the Force Ghost, would have been better. And so is the implication here that Qui-Gon is the first Jedi to figure out how to become, the Force Ghost, basically?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I guess so.
Which is kind of interesting. I feel like we should have seen him. Instead of us just being told it was a bit odd.
Before we get to the credits rolling, I do want to say I think it's so funny that they decide, all right, we're going to send Leia to live in royalty. But hey, what are we going to do with Luke? I don't know. Let's send him to live in poverty on Tatooine. It's just so funny.
I was kind of sad about that too. Yeah, that kind of sucks. But none of this would have happened if Padme hadn't died for literally no reason. That robot literally says that
she's fine.
Medically, she's totally fine. But she's lost the will to live, which is just code for George Lucas was just tired that day while writing. And was just I'll just literally not give a reason for her dying. It's so odd. Couldn't they could have done anything here. You could have just had her have
poisoned her or something like that.
Yeah. And then she has complications. Instead, she's totally fine.
What do you guys think about Palpatine telling Vader that he killed her? And you get the worst no ever in the history of cinema.
Oh. Yeah. Well, I think him telling him was pretty cool because Palpatine was clearly happy to tell him. He was smiling.
So
that just shows you the shittiness of that guy.
Did Palpatine somehow kill her through the Force? Did he somehow ensure that she died, maybe? I don't know.
Let's not give any credit any credit to George Lucas here. He just was lazy.
That's what I was saying. It would have been cooler to like have Palpatine poison her or something like that. That way it would actually make sense.
Yeah. That would have been more interesting. But no, that's not what happened. It is
sad too because like Vader, I mean, I guess I should say Anakin only went to the dark side for her. And it is, I mean, kind of like a final punch in the gut. Especially after the fact that he's now been totally disfigured. He has to live inside this suit, basically. It's like that final stab that everything that he did this for is for nothing. Like, according, in his estimation, Padme and his child, because he didn't know they were twins, just died. And now, I feel like that scene of him walking up to Tarkin and Palpatine and just standing there looking at the Death Star and crossing his arms is kind of just supposed to visually show that he's not totally interested in this, but he has nothing else to live for at this point. Like, he can't go back to the Jedi. He can't reach out to Obi-Wan. He has no Padme. He doesn't have a child. So I guess I'll just do this, is kind of the way I took it.
Yeah, that's pretty much the way I took it.
Did you guys know that it is Hayden Christensen in the suit?
Yeah, I remember that from behind the scenes. Obviously, they brought James Earl Jones back to do the voice, but
he begged George Lucas to put him in the suit, and he apparently was so short that he can only see through the mouth hole of the suit.
Yeah, that's funny. It's kind of funny to picture, but it still looked cool. I thought. I mean,
yeah,
I agree with you.
Except for the no. When he does the no, it looks terrible.
The no is bad, but I do love the construction of that scene. It's like he's told that everything that he was fighting for is gone. And then, without even, putting his hands up, just through his sheer force ability, just getting angry, the entire room just starts to, impact it, collapse in on itself. And Palpatine just smiling in the background was like, I did love that. I thought that was great.
All right. Well, we made it through the prequels. Congratulations, my friends. And now, let's get into our awards segment. Nice. If anyone's new this week, our awards is my favorite portion of the show. We do awards for what we've talked about. It can literally be for anything. Any award we give here does physically get sent out to the recipients. Well, I'll kick us off this week for the awards ceremony. I'm going to give the best zombie cosplay award to Ian McDermott as Palpatine after he transforms from killing Mace Windu. The way he's moaning and groaning, you could be a zombie, my friend.
Gosh, that was a beautiful look. He looked terrible. His
whole scene became
terrible. A butt. Like the middle of it, there was a part. Ugh, it was pretty gross. Keith, do you have something grosser, or are you going a different route with your award?
I'll go a little bit different route. The Best Brothers award goes to Chewbacca and his brother Tarful on Kashyyyk.
Tarful. What a weird... Why was Chewbacca in this? I mean, you could have had just that one Wookiee.
There actually was going to be a young Han Solo, too. A 10-year-old Han Solo.
And they cut that out,
Who, for some reason, was on Kashyyyk.
Yeah, I guess the idea is he grew up with the Wookiees. I don't know. I'm glad that was cut. But Chewbacca being there also weird. But at least, it's good that he was in it, because now he gets an award. So there you go.
All right, Matthew, take us home. Close out our award ceremony. What you got for us?
I'm going to be giving the Geico Employee of the Month award. I'm giving it to the gecko on Utapau, who I always loved growing up. I loved seeing that gecko that Obi-Wan rode in the Geico commercials. I always thought he was so charismatic that it made sense to me why they then cast him in this movie as the gecko. And I thought he gave a great performance. I mean, pretty emotional. I think he was pretty convincing. And I liked watching Ewan McGregor put a saddle on him and ride him. That
gecko in this movie probably gets more pop on our show than it did in the actual film.
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt. That's what we're about.
Alrighty. Well, everybody, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode and you can join us every single week. Also, if you wouldn't mind sharing us with a friend, we really would appreciate that so we can continue to grow the show. At the Arnies is our social, and the Arnies.media is the website. We'll be back next week with our debate on the best movie scores.
And everybody out there, feel free to reach out to us on Instagram, at the Arnies. Send us a DM. Let us know your thoughts on what we've been up to. What are your thoughts on Star Wars? What are your favorite games? We talked about that last week. What are your favorite movie scores for the week coming up? Yeah, just DM us. Let us know what your thoughts are, and we'll be happy to read it on the show. Yeah, there you go. That's what I got for you.
All right. Bye, everyone. We'll see you next week.
Do it.